Hello everybody, Talkin Baseball. Once again, I'm Jason Andera alongside Joel Sage, and we're here to break down Class A and Class B high school baseball in South Dakota. And we had the standings come out for the first time this year. The league put out the standings and they have a PowerPoint system, and that will evolve here over the next couple weeks. But are there any big surprises that you saw in that standings or anything that really should call attention?
Well, it's an exciting time of year.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people asking when the standings are going to come out. Well, they're here now, and it gives everybody a lot to talk about. And I know Harrisburg is feeling pretty good about where they are. Yankton, Washington, and Sturgis, because if it ended right now, they'd all be hosting the region tournament. So that's the goal for all those teams, is to be one of those top four slots.
Get a top four slot. That is important, and that will fluctuate here over the next couple of weeks, but it's just around the corner. Let's talk about a couple of those teams that came in at the top of the standings. Harrisburg came in. This was the standings as of it's April 30th, I believe. So they may have changed just a little bit in the last couple of days. But Harrisburg came in. They had 7 wins in a row, hadn't lost a game in the class, finally lost on Tuesday night to Huron for the first time all year. But this is a team that looks pretty dangerous.
They do. They're really swinging it well. I mean, when they hit, they're up there to do damage, and really violent with the barrels and looking to ambush fastballs. And I mean, if you're not on top of your game as a pitcher, you're probably going to get knocked around a little bit. And I think a lot of teams have seen that so far this season. Huron's not an easy place to go win, and this time of year, you never know. Are you going to have your 3s, 4s, and 5s matching up against your opponent's 1s and 2s as far as the pitching rotation goes? So I don't think Harrisburg is worried at all about that loss, but they'll use it as motivation and they'll keep rolling right along. It looks like Braxton Kusler, the lefty, has pitched really well. Still have some guys swinging it really well at the plate. Seen big numbers from Tegan Muntz, especially. Looks like Max Carlson is coming around. Yeah. It seems like we've been calling his name ever since the state tournament a couple years ago, and so really seeing those guys lead the team.
Yeah, this Harrisburg team didn't have a ton of games in early, and now have started to pick up a little bit on the scheduling too. So they got 2 games in on Tuesday at Harrisburg, or against Huron. Thursday they got Roosevelt. Friday they have Jefferson. So finally have some games on the schedule for the Tigers, but they came in at number 1 in the rankings. But Yankton just behind them. Yankton was off to a great start. Then they had a little bit of a stumble when they played against Jefferson, but again, everybody's kind of beating everybody, and you don't know if you have aces going against, like you said, 3 or 4 5s. What do you make of this Yankton team so far?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, just because they were at home. Now, had they made the trip up to Sioux Falls and Jefferson swept them, maybe a little less surprised, but Yankton's always tough at home. So, tip of the cap to Jefferson for getting the job done. It looked like Duin pitched really well in that first game, and Miratello came in and locked it down in the 7th. So looks like he's maybe making his way back from a little arm soreness. And I know Mason Riley had a really big game, went 4 for 5 with a couple doubles, and then I believe it was in the nightcap that Carson Hughes had a 5 RBI game. So we have said it before that Jefferson has a dangerous lineup, and maybe that's starting to show.
Yeah, I think the combination of Kyler Miratello getting better and that lineup starting to click should scare a few teams, but they did get the best of Yankton. However, Yankton, though, last Saturday got the win against Washington, and Washington at that time had been flying high. That was really the first dent in Washington, and then they started collecting a couple dents. They lost to Harrisburg twice. This is a team that's good, but maybe brought down a notch from that top seed that they were, just a week or so ago in my rankings.
Yeah, I agree. They hit a little rough patch, but I feel like their top 4 pitchers really could match up against anybody, and I don't know what the exact order that it's going to shake out, but I've seen Bryce Ronkin pitch. He was really good. Andrew Glovich was really good.
He was.
I guess that would have been Monday night. And then let's see, Carter Dosher is a tall righty that really fills up the zone and can give hitters problems. And then you throw in Miles Reese too. Yeah. So those top 4 pitchers, they can match up with anybody. So Washington, I don't think that's the last we've heard of them.
Yeah, just a little rough patch, 1-4 in their last 5 games. But overall, they've got the pitching, but the pitching has let them down over the last week. I think they have enough pitching to keep that going in the right direction. Let's talk about Sturgis a little bit. Sturgis may be the biggest surprise here of those top 4 teams. a little bit due to their schedule. They haven't come out on this side of the state yet.
Right, this should be a good test for them this weekend when they come to Mitchell Friday night for a doubleheader, and then they play Roosevelt and Lincoln on Saturday. So that should help the rest of the state see what Sturgis is all about. As far as right now, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat. You know, they swept Stevens last night, and they won against Stevens earlier in the year and Central earlier in the year. I think their only losses are to Gillette, who's a powerhouse Legion program. So you can kind of throw those games out the window, but that's probably good experience for them. But it'll be interesting to see how they fare this weekend. And as far as Rapid City Stevens, you know, people are thinking, well,
yeah,
what have they done? Well, guess what? They have a good one too. Jackson Dial, sophomore, pitched really well on Saturday against Brandon Valley, and then their two, Brady Bickett, is every bit as advertised. He can match up really well against the teams.
Yeah, I think there's some talent on Sturgis and Stevens this year. Not exactly the same type of teams we've seen over the last couple of years. Sturgis has Kane Peters, who he's getting about 2 strikeouts per inning, and then Owen Cass, their big senior in the middle of the lineup, is having a big year as well. So watch out for Stevens and Sturgis. But let's talk about some of the other contenders that are kind of in the mix to maybe find a way to get into one of those top 4. We got Brandon Valley, you got Mitchell, Jefferson, the defending champs from Lincoln, off to a little slow start, but they've got the potential to get there too. Maybe start with Brandon Valley. What do you think about this team?
Well, I would say deepest pitching staff in the state. They have a lot of arms that can go out there and really cause problems for opponents. As far as the last week or so, won 6 in a row, 7 out of the last 9, so they're rolling. Pitching-wise, they've gotten 2 really good starts out of Jared Zur, the senior, 2 really good starts out of Daniel Butine since we last talked. Tate Ivers picked up 2 wins, 1 in relief out in Rapid City, and then a really good outing against Washington on Monday night. He went 6 2/3. Just ran out of pitches, but he was really good, really shut down a good Washington team. And then offensively, Dawson Mork has been on an absolute tear. On-base machine, and then he's been coming up with clutch hits. He had a bases clearing triple against O'Gorman to break open a 1-1 tie late in the game last Monday. And then this past Monday, 2-run triple to break open 1-1 tie against Washington. So really doing a great job at the top of the lineup. And then they've got plenty of other guys chipping in and doing what they need to do.
Yeah, Pierre's a team that started out the year not winning those close games, but they had a good weekend against Lincoln, and they feel like, you know, if you got Jet Zabel and Jackson Edmond and Lincoln Keenholz, who haven't put a ton of innings in, but when one of those 3 guys are pitching, you feel like you have a chance against anyone.
Yeah, I look at them and just say, well, they got off to a slow start, but definitely do not overlook the Governors. Yeah. Lincoln Keenholz, arguably the best 3-sport athlete in the state, and
it's not much of an argument, really.
Baseball, my gosh, he's a game changer, and had his first home run, and I think you mentioned over 2 strikeouts per inning. He's the real deal. Yeah,
they're a fun team to watch. And then Mitchell and Brookings and a lot of teams in the mix here. Huron with a good win over Harrisburg. So I still think we're going to have a lot of movement in the middle of that class with a chance to kind of move up to one of those top seeds as we approach playoff time. Still a couple weeks to solidify where these teams are headed. Let's take a look at the big bats from through this season so far. I decided to take a look at the RBI category, and some teams have played more games than others, but Lucas Kamshoff has been cleaning up the bases for Yankton. I know at the park down there, sometimes considered an offensive park, but he's a guy that you can't look past in the Yankton lineup.
No, he'll hurt you for sure. And anytime you can average more than 1 RBI a game, you're doing something. That's not easy to do. So he's off to a great start, and I see that probably continuing.
Yeah, here's a list of some of the other top RBI guys in the state. Tristan Fitzsimmons out of Washington, Tegan Muntz from Harrisburg, Sullivan Schlimgen, we talked about him having his big 2-home-run game earlier this year, Justin Koffel, Nate Model, Cade Walker out of Rapid City Stevens, Owen Cass from Sturgis really hasn't played the fewest games here and still has 13 RBIs. And then a guy like Dylan Solik from Mitchell, we know he can cause damage, and a lot of other guys here with double-digit RBIs so far this season. Really shows what these guys can do when they get some ducks on the base and get some good pitches to see. They are doing some damage for sure. Also, another stat I picked out for pitchers, strikeouts per inning. And anytime you're getting over that 1 strikeout per inning, you're doing great. Here's some guys over 2 strikeouts per inning. Lincoln Keenholz, 23 Ks in 9 innings pitched. Jack Riddell, he only has 10 2/3 innings pitched so far for Roosevelt, but 24 Ks. Kyler Miratello, you talked about his arm soreness. Only 12 innings in so far this year, but already 24 strikeouts. And then Braxton Kusler, basically at 2 strikeouts per inning. That really takes an achievement to be able to mow that many guys down, but it really helps your defense too.
Absolutely, and that's 4 legitimate aces right there. And as you said, it can help your defense. You get into a little trouble, maybe make an error, or even if they drop in a bloop single or whatever, you have a guy that can really step up and get a strikeout in a big jam.
And you talked about Jackson Dial out of Stevens, a sophomore who's having a great season, up on that list. Tate Ivers, you talked about his couple victories with Brandon Valley. He's got 40 Ks through 23 1/3. And Andrew Glovich, we mentioned him too, a guy in 13 innings already mowed down 23. Plenty more on this list to take a look at. So there's a few guys to watch out when they are on the mound. They're fun to watch mow people down. Let's take a look at Class B now, Joel. And their standings came out as well on Monday. And it's interesting because they only take region games that count toward their record. And in Region 1, for instance, Dakota Valley made it to the state tournament last year. They come in at 9-1. They lost to Bonhomme Avon, but Bonhomme is 3rd in the region right now with a 5-0 record. But that's kind of how it shakes out in B's. You have to find a way to get to the top 2 by the end of the year. And right now, Bonhomme Avon just haven't had enough games in yet.
Yeah, ideally those Class B teams, they want to be one of the top 2 seeds because that means they host. But I think based on what we saw last year, as long as you're in the top 4, I think you feel pretty decent about your chances. You know, maybe that 4 could get an upset over the 1 seed. And I think we did see a couple 3s sneak into the state tournament.
Yeah.
Not really sneak in, but found a way to get it done on somebody else's field. And so it'll be fun to see how everything shakes out because the B schools typically start to ramp up the number of games they play. Some of them are a little bit behind. But they'll get there, and it'll be fun to see who hosts.
And they always try to get those region games in as the most important games, if they have makeup games, for instance, because those count on the standings. Interestingly here, Redfield area and Howard doing well in Region 2, not anything different than we expected. But Region 3, T area, comes in at 8-0. Of course, they played some Class A teams as well and challenged them. Didn't always get the win, but those don't count toward their record in Class B.
Yeah, T's legit. They have a well-balanced team, and they haven't shied away from competition. A couple wins over A schools, and so I think they're ready to kind of make their mark. They hosted last year, but I believe it was West Central who upset them in the region tournament. So, they may be kind of on a revenge tour and ready to punch their ticket to the state tournament this year.
Yeah, and that's the same region that the defending champions Del Rapids is in. They still only have just the 1 loss to Lenox, so that makes for a very competitive region as we look at that region as well. And then Region 4, right now it's really a toss-up. Gregory County, team that made the state tournament 2 years ago. Winter Cologne, a team that, in the Legion Ball made it all the way to the finals. And then Belle Fourche and Platte Geddes, Dakota Christian, White Lake, all teams to watch. So Region 4 could be a lot of fun. Those teams are beating each other up right now. Speaking of Class B, though, when's the last time you saw a 4-homer game in high school baseball, Joel?
Never.
I don't remember ever seeing one, but Joel's watched a lot more high school games than I have. Riley Rothschadl of Bonhomme hit 4 dingers in 1 game, so I thought, you know what, we got to catch up with Riley and see exactly how he did it, and he told us this very humbly on how he got 4 homers in the game.
So Tyndall's field is pretty small. It's only like 310 to center and 290 to right and left. So at least 2 of the homers would not be home runs in like actual ballparks, but it's what we call like only in Tyndall home runs. So the first one was dead center. It probably went like 315. It was a pop fly that the wind took and they got out. The next one hit it pretty good. It was to right field. That one was probably out in any ballpark we played in. And then the next one, it was a pop fly again. Wind took it, got out. And then the last one, I got into the last one pretty good, and it got out by quite a bit.
Was there any talk during the game, like after you hit a couple, like, hey, go out there and get another one, or you know what I mean? Was it mounting a little bit in the dugout?
Well, yeah, the game was kind of getting out of hand, so
Yeah.
the boys were just telling me to swing hard, and I went out there and just swung hard, kept my eye on the ball, and the ball went.
Let's talk about the team a little bit this year. You guys have had a great year. Tell me what you guys are doing well. What's working well for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, everyone in the lineup's been hitting good. 1 through 9. That always helps when 1 through 9 can get on base. And coach has been putting me at lead off because I've been getting walked and people have been kind of pitching around me, and the boys have been able to hit me in. And then on the defensive side, we got 6, 7 guys that can go up there and throw strikes for us on the mound. Haven't made many errors, and we just play as a team, and hopefully we can keep this momentum going into regions.
What are you going to remember most about the spot night?
Yeah, probably just my teammates going crazy. I mean, they were going nuts in the dugout and stuff, and that's definitely a moment I'll remember for the rest of my life. So it's pretty special.
So an incredible achievement for Riley Rothschadl. I know he's going to downplay it a little bit, but 4 homers in a game, that's pretty ridiculous. Congrats to Riley, and looking forward to see what he and his team can do coming up in his region as Bonham was rocking early on. For Joel Sage, I'm Jason Andera. We'll be back in 2 weeks to preview what is going to be playoff baseball just around the corner. So we'll come back with Talking Baseball in 2 weeks. See you guys then.